put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Duke Show.
I have 2 guns, one for each of you.
Firearms Friday.
As Thomas Jefferson stated, it is the right and duty of the people to be at all times armed.
Say hello to my little friend.
I say that the Second Amendment is, in order of importance, the First Amendment. The right to keep and bear arms is the one right that allows rights to exist at all.
The Michael Duke Show. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Firearms.
From my cold, dead hands.
Friday.
Here's my rifle, this is my gun, this is for riding, it's for fun.
Firearms Friday.
TGIFF. Thank goodness it's finally Firearms Friday. Good morning, my friends, and thank you for joining us on this beautiful Friday here on the Michael Duke Show, broadcasting live across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator, and live around the world on the internet at both michaeldukeshow.com, where you'll find audio links to the live stream, and on Facebook, YouTube, and Rumble as well. Good morning and welcome to the program. Firearms Fridays, where we get a chance to dive into issues related to the Second Amendment, and we are excited to cover these things each and every week. I kind of think of it as my weekly therapy session, right? I just feel so much better when it's like I want to talk about these things, but I got to kind of consolidate them down into one show a week. Otherwise, it would bleed into every day of the week. That's, nobody has time for that. So that's why we brought Firearms Friday down. Today is a great show. We are joined by my favorite writer over at one of my favorite publications, which is Reason Magazine. You could find them at reason.com. JD Tuccille writes over there, and he writes sometimes about some things regarding the Second Amendment, and more so today we're going to talk about the latest and greatest from California, not a bastion of gun-loving freedom by any means, but they're new forced to have to deal with concealed carry from other people from outside their state, and also something that does concern me as a very vocal and visible member of the gun culture, and that is the new warning from the FBI on swatting. JD has written about both of these issues here recently, and so we've asked him to come on the program and discuss it with us. JD Tuccille joins us this morning. Good morning, my friend. How are you doing this morning?
Doing well. Thanks for having me on. It's good to see you again.
Well, it's always good to have you on, sir. I appreciate it. And here's a little behind the scenes. It seems like I always call JD like the day before, the night before. Hey, you busy tomorrow? You got anything going on? And luckily for me, Friday seems to be his easy day. So he just, we're good to go. So JD comes on to talk with us about it. JD, California, as I just mentioned, everybody knows. I mean, between California, Illinois, and New York, it's hard to decide which one of them is the most anti-gun state in the country. But California probably edges everybody out just from its historical view. And of course, this idea that concealed carry and the idea of reciprocity around the states, where every state would recognize the concealed carry permit from every other state, has been a big push for the last, I think we're up to 36 or 37 states now have reciprocity with other states. But California, well, they don't like that. They don't want to see, nope, not going to happen. But they have made some moves that if you decide you're going to go to their state, that you might be able to do it. Might. That's the key word there, right?
Yeah, might, with a big emphasis. California, there are a few states that don't recognize out-of-state carry permits, but most of them will at least let you apply for one of their own carry permits. So if you want to go, I think to Maryland is one of those. They don't have any reciprocity agreements with other states, but you can at least apply for a Maryland carry permit. California doesn't recognize out-of-state carry permits, and up until recently, you weren't allowed to apply for a California permit. So legally, if you want to carry the means for self-defense, you're kind of out of luck, except that several organizations, the Second Amendment Foundation, Gun Owners of America, the California Rifle and Pistol Association, and the GOA affiliate in California sued, and they wanted to force California to recognize out-of-state carry permits, which would be nice. My wife and I have carry permits. We would like to be able to legally carry in California, considering that California is kind of a dump in some places, a pretty dump outside the cities, but its cities are a little sketchy. The case is still moving its way through the courts. The judge has not yet forced California to recognize out-of-state carry permits, but it has ruled that the state must allow the members of the plaintiff organizations, again, Second Amendment Foundation, GOA, California Rifle and Pistol Association, must allow their members to be able to apply for California concealed carry permits. You still have to jump through all the hoops, so we can go through what those are, and they're ridiculous. But at least you have the potential to be able to legally carry a firearm in the state of California if you're a member of one of those plaintiff organizations. And yes, you can still join them.
Right. What caught my attention at the beginning of this article when you were writing it was, the idea that, you're going to now have a choice of either being disarmed or, the implication, look, the last time I was in California, well, I guess the last time my wife and I were in California, we were traveling through, and I was coming from Oregon, and I was trying to get to Nevada. And the route that I took me through that little northern corner of California. And I was armed. Okay. that's how I roll. And I was like, well, I guess since there's absolutely no way I'm going to be able to, I'm just going to do it. And, and I think there's a lot of people like that. If they're from neighboring states and they're going to be in California, they know how things could go sideways in any of these areas. And basically you're forcing people to break the law, good law-abiding citizens who just want to be able to defend themselves, especially in areas outside in the city or outside the city. And so I think this is a step in the right direction in giving them the ability to defend themselves without becoming criminals themselves.
That's exactly right. And you're definitely not the only person who's carried a firearm without a permit in California, especially since the alternatives are limited. California, you can carry pepper spray, but it's restricted in size and it has to be labeled that's a self-defense weapon, because if it has a sticker on it saying self-defense, you're not going to use it for bad purposes, obviously. Knives are restricted in California. Saps and like if you want to carry an baton, those are banned in California. I guess harsh words to judge by driving on the freeway are definitely still allowed, but that's right. About as far as it goes without legal restrictions. So yes, and unless you get a lot of us have carried illegally in California because we feel the need, we think it's necessary, but at least they're moving in the direction of making it legally possible to carry the means of self-defense.
Yeah, but they're not making it easy, are they? Because you're gonna have to walk me through the restrictions and what they need to do, because they're definitely, if they don't make it easy for their own citizens, they're going to make it even harder for you as a citizen of another state to try and get it. What are all the hoops that they got to jump through if you want to get a concealed carry permit as an outsider from California?
Well, those of us who are already feeling the yank of time of years' passage should know that Los Angeles County admits to taking a year to a year and a half to process a concealed carry weapons permit. That's for its current residents. Some jurisdictions have added psychological screenings on there. They're choosing the shrinks themselves, and they're making applicants pay for it. California, of course, imposes limits on which firearms you can own. There's a list of permitted handguns in the state. Now, mostly, if you already owned it out of state and you're bringing it in, you're grandfathered into that list, but you have to check. That's not always the case. And the CCW permits in California, unlike those in free states, are limited to I think it's either 2 or 3, depending on the jurisdiction you're applying, 2 or 3 pistols that you have to name by make, model, and serial number. And it's not like you can decide, forget about it, I'm going to carry my new Glock instead. No, The permit is only applicable to that one firearm you have, and so you hope you have no mechanical issues with it when you're going to go to California. That's the basic list right there. Other jurisdictions have their own rules, including like assessments of subjective need, which are in violation of federal law at this point, given the Supreme Court's decisions. So you're basically having to abide by unconstitutional restrictions that Californians have to abide by too, in order to have the hope of being treated at least as badly as a Californian.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's not statewide either, right? It's by jurisdiction. So you come in Northern California and you've got a permit down in San Diego because your final destination is San Diego. You best not carry it all the way to San Diego because it's only valid in one spot, right?
Yeah, I mean, if according to this ruling, the court ruling, if you're an out-of-stater and a member of one of these plaintiff organizations, you have to apply to a jurisdiction in which you expect to be spending time in the next year in order to, be covered by this ruling, allowing you to apply for a CCW. So it's as restrictive as you can get while still issuing concealed carry permits at all. And the Supreme Court has said that the states have to issue concealed carry permits, but California is doing its very best through bureaucracy and through nitpicking rules to make it unattractive to abide by the law and to get a CCW.
No, wait a second. You have to apply to a jurisdiction that you're going to spend time with in the next 12 months, but LA County is taking a year and a half to process applications for their own residents, let alone for out of. How does that work? I mean, how does the timing on that even work?
I would have to guess that it doesn't, and that's probably a design feature in the application process.
Yeah, if I don't show up in the next 12 months, they're like, sorry, you ran out of time. I mean, it's again, this goes back to that old axiom that I remember from a kid: when guns are outlawed, only outlaws will have guns. And of course, you read into that and realize that means that even law-abiding citizens who refuse to participate in stupid laws basically are going to say better to be judged by 12 than carried by 6, and they're going to make the decision to break that law. You're turning law-abiding citizens into outlaws. I mean, this is crazy. I mean, at some point, I don't know, JD, you're watching this from the sidelines. You're down there right next to California. You probably spend a lot more time there than I do. Are they ever going to be drug kicking and screaming into the new era of Brune and actual constitutional protections, or are they just going to continue to double down with the stupid at all this stuff?
Well, I mean, this is going to end up traveling its way up through the federal courts. It's in the federal courts now. And I can't imagine that the Supreme Court that we have isn't going to at some point look at them and saying, look, we really meant it. You actually have to do what we say. So I think there's going to be a double down on this at the Supreme Court level. California has been playing this out. I think that their hope was that Harris was going to win the presidential election, put 1 or 2 new members on the Supreme Court, reverse Brune, reverse the other pro-gun decisions, and then they wouldn't have to change their ways. That hasn't worked out the way they'd planned. We have the Supreme Court that we have, and that court is almost certainly going to slap California down hard. But in the meantime, you've got to file suit, and you have to wait years, or you've got to do what I used to do in the 90s in New York when I worked a night shift and I had to walk across town through some pretty sketchy industrial areas. And I was like, I'm just going to carry, because it was absolutely impossible unless you had money and political connections at that time to get a carry permit. And so I carried because I wanted to get from point A to point B without getting dead in between. So right. I did. And that's what people are going to keep on doing with California.
Yeah, no, at that point, again, you have to, you have to, you become the outlaw. They are forcing you to become the outlaw. I saw a comment on some story that said something along the lines of, well, this just shows people's complete and utter lack of, the fact that people are buying guns shows a complete and utter lack of uncertainty about, the police's ability to protect you. Well, of course they can't. You're walking through an industrial area in New York at night. There's not a cop on every corner. You're going to wait for them. You got to wait for the violence for them to then come in and get you. You might be dead at that point. Of course, people are. That's the thing. It's this misnomer that somehow law enforcement is omnipresent. It could just be there at any second. People have abdicated all of their own personal responsibility to protect themselves.
Absolutely. Look, in real terms, even at their best, even with good cops on the job, the police are the cleanup crew. They show up after things have happened. Now, it's nice if you're in a central business district during the daytime and there's a old-fashioned cop on the beat, which you don't see too often anymore, or more likely a patrol car rolling down the street. That has a deterrent effect. And that's true. That can have some deterrent effect. But mostly, they're the cleanup crew. Something happens, they show up afterwards. If you're lucky, they investigate. Maybe they catch the person who already did the crime that occurred. But if you don't want the crime to occur to you, if you don't want to be having be treated by the cleanup crew, assuming you survive the situation, then you actually have to defend yourself and your loved ones.
So here's the big question on this whole California thing: how much does it cost? What's the? I mean, not in time, because now we have no idea what the time frame is. But how much does it cost if I want to get a concealed carry permit in California for my trip to Disneyland? Which, by the way, doesn't allow guns inside of it anyway. So, I mean, that's not going to help you. But how much does it cost?
It varies. Again, this is a jurisdictional application. So they set their own fees. And the ones in particular that require psychological screening, you're paying for a psychologist's time, and a psychologist who's presumably is sympathetic to the anti-gun argument, or that psychologist would not have been made available by that jurisdiction. So it's going to run you a lot more money than, say, in Arizona, where I showed up for I did a short training course, paid a fee. It was a little annoying because I'm still dealing with bureaucracy, but you end up walking out of there for a couple, dealing with the whole situation for a couple $100. California, it's going to cost more, but it's jurisdictional. It's going to be a lot of time, and if they throw in a psychological screening, I would guess you're talking about four figures.
Yeah, no, I imagine a psychological screening is at least $400 or $500 plus everything else. I mean, you're talking about $1,000 bill every time you want to, and it is temporary, right? I mean, these are not permanent. These are not permanent permits. Like every time you'd go down, you'd have to apply, or. I
think California's are 3-year permits. Okay. I forget exactly how long they'll last, but yeah, at the end of it, you at least, I'm assuming you don't have to go through the full rigmarole again, but at least you've got to pay for the renewal.
Well, it's, I guess it's a step in the right direction, but at the same time, they're holding on by their fingernails, trying to hold us back. Yeah. And it's just not pretty. We need to get this decided in the courts. There's no two ways about that. JD Tuccille, our guest, contributing editor for Reason Magazine. If you don't subscribe to his newsletter called The Rattler, you're dead to me. Come on, people. Pretty easy. Go over to reason.com, click on any one of his stories, and there's a little box in there that says sign up for the Rattler. You should do it right now. All right, we got more coming up with JD Tuccille. We'll be back in a minute. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense, Liberty-Based, Free Thinking Radio.
Running on 100% pure beard power. Oh, also some coffee. We dip our beard in coffee.
Nice beard.
The Michael Duke Show.
All right, JD Tuccille is our guest here on the Michael Duke Show. Yeah, I mean, California, those people are just so messed up down there. I don't know. We had Chris Chang on last week, Top Shot champion from season 4 of the show Top Shot, and he lives in San Francisco. And, he's been the NSSF spokesman and done all kinds of stuff and everything. And I asked him, like, how can you live in the People's Republic of California? How could, as a second, I mean, God love you. God love all you guys that live in California and are still fighting back. But it just feels like, I mean, it's not even a David and Goliath thing where you feel like you could actually have God's help to win. It just feels like a Herculean task. It's no Sisyphean task. You're rolling that boulder up the hill and it just keeps crushing you on the way back down. I can't imagine. And that's why I think in a lot of ways, it's just another example of why you see this mass exodus of those people leaving. And of course, coming to places like Arizona, where you live, to try and change the rules there.
Yeah, it's what's interesting, and actually, I was really worried about the California exodus to Arizona because we've had some folks move in, and it's very obvious they're not from the area, and you're like, what are they going to do to our culture? And I felt better after the New York Times ran an analysis last year, and they found out that California's population is actually dropping, not by a huge amount, but it's one of the few states that's losing population. Illinois is another garden spot, right? Uh, but what it turns out is that the people leaving are those that are political refugees. And as people are migrating from state to state, people moving to red states are making red states redder. People moving to blue states are making blue states bluer. And Arizona, when they broke down the numbers, had gained a net of 17,000 Republican voters, mostly because the Californians coming to Arizona tend conservative. So we're not apparently being overrun by folks who want to turn us into California. We're mostly getting the Californians who are fleeing California and don't want to live that way anymore. So I feel a little bit better, at least for now. But we still have that. We still have that monstrosity across the border.
Yeah, no, I mean it's interesting when you're talking about, again, the red states getting redder and the blue states getting bluer. This comes back to this polarization, and what one author wrote about, I was about 10, 12 years ago, I read an article talking about, the tribalization and the Balkanization of the United States, where there's a big possibility that sometime in the future we could really break down into enclaves of different, if you want to see a civil war, then it would be blue versus red, essentially. And that we're seeing more and more of that Balkanization, which I think is natural in some ways, but in other ways, it really makes me weep, because we should be able to we should be able to agree to disagree on things in this country. We were able to do that for 200 years, but it's just been in the last 50 years that it's really gotten bad.
That's absolutely true. And our current you can have that balkanization, that polarization, the big political differences state to state, if we stick with the original model, where most decisions are made locally or at the state level, not at the national level. But the more you centralize decision making to the national level, the less the United States makes sense. And the more likely it is that eventually it breaks apart, either in some kind of a cataclysmic way, like the movie Civil War that came out last year, but more likely where localities, and we've seen this happen over the last 15 years or so, pay less and less, basically ignore the federal government, even ignore state governments, right, and just refuse to enforce state or national law.
Well, and that's the beginning of an Irish democracy, right? I mean, that problem is that when you get more and more laws that people begin to ignore more and more, that is really the total breakdown of society, because, and the politicians, they always double down. Well, you didn't follow the first law. We'll make another law making it illegal to not follow the first law. Wait a minute. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. And that road leads to madness. Yeah,
and that will lead to chaos. It delegitimizes different levels of government. But honestly, we are moving in that direction.
Yeah, it's interesting to see yet another reason why you should support the Second Amendment for issues like that, just in case. I got my bunker. It'll be fine. Don't worry. It'll be crazy. All right, JD Tuccille joins us as we continue on here. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, ring the bell, do all the things you're supposed to do. Here we go.
What the hell's an assault weapon? What isn't? If I assault you with a penguin, doesn't that make it an assault weapon? Does this mean that if we hurt your feelings, you'd consider the Michael Dukes Show assault radio? Okay, we can live with that. Here's Michael Dukes.
Yeah, those penguins, man. The second only to the trunk monkeys. Assault penguins and trunk monkeys. Stay away from those guys. I got to tell you. We're back with JD Tuccille, contributing editor for Reason Magazine. He joins us today to talk about some of these issues. Now, as a gun guy, I think anybody can be part of the gun culture, and, they don't have to be, but I'm a pretty visible gun guy. I've been talking pretty vocally out on the air. I mean, I guess I'm a quasi public figure, right? Because people know me and they know my name or my face. And one of the things that has concerned me in recent years has been this, what they originally called swatting. because of the calling out of the SWAT teams. Now, JD, you just wrote an article about this and said you yourself had contacted your local law enforcement office about it because you were concerned. So walk me through this. Why did you do that? What did you say? As somebody who has you're a publicly visible person because of what you write, and you write opinions, and that doesn't always sit well with people. Give us the rundown on what this is about.
Yeah, I mean, just basic terms, swatting, if anyone doesn't know what it means, is when someone makes hoax phone calls claiming that there's been a shooting or violence at a residence or an office, gets an emergency response from law enforcement. The SWAT team shows up. It's bogus, but it puts people at risk because the cops show up and they're all strung out and they're waiting for violence. And people have been killed by swatting attacks. When someone shows up at the door in the middle of the night, they're rubbing sleep from their eyes, and they have a gun in their hand because they don't know who's banging on the door, or they just don't comply fast enough. And at least 2 people I know of have died during swatting attacks. It's become more common in recent years. There has been a flurry of them. In March and April, it was up to something like a dozen a week, politically motivated, mostly targeted at right of center, conservatives, Trump supporters in particular. Last year, there were a bunch targeted lefties. It seems to be whoever's out of power ends up on the receiving end. And it's incredibly dangerous. It also tends to go hand in hand with other harassment. You'll get people fake pizza deliveries. I mean, bogus with charges due when the pizza shows up. And if you get a dozen of those a night for weeks on end, it's a little annoying. Attempts to hack into your Google accounts or PayPal accounts, the so-called account recovery attempts. Now, I have not been swatted. I'm not really conservative. I'm a libertarian, but I've had days when I've had 6 or 8, account recovery attempts on accounts of mine, and I'm getting bizarre phone calls from companies claiming there's weird activity in an account that I've never had. So it gets a little disturbing, especially since people who have been on the receiving end of SWAT attacks report being subject to this kind of harassment before the SWAT team shows up. So yeah, I contacted my sheriff's department and I said, in case you get a call for emergency response to my address, please be aware this is going on, and that the FBI has put out an alert on this, and that there's a high probability that it's a hoax.
What was their reaction? I'm curious as to what your local sheriff's department reaction to that was when you're like pre-warning them. Hey, by the way, just let you know this is what's going on, and I'm armed, so if you show up at the door in the middle of the night, I may not think it's you. I mean, what was their reaction to that?
It's amazing. I was reached out and I'm like, oh, they're going to think I'm nuts. And I put it off for a while, even though I had been concerned for a while. And then the FBI notice came out April 29th. And it kind of gave chapter and verse on the fact that this has become a big problem across the entire country, and that high profile people are being targeted. It's not just personal grievances. And then there were separate warnings from the head of the FCC and Kash Patel, the head of the FBI, specifically putting it in a political context. My sheriff's department was great about it. They're like, thank you for giving us the heads up. We'll inform the district commander of the sheriff's department, and he'll let his deputies know in case there are any calls. They took it as a matter of course, which tells me that this sort of thing is now a known factor in law enforcement circles.
Right. When you're a public figure, you expect some sort of harassment. I had to laugh the other day because apparently I pushed somebody's buttons a few weeks ago because all of a sudden my show email address was subscribed to every local regional government, pension program, transit authority. Somebody took my email address, which was nicer than the time that they applied it to a bunch of porn sites and sent it to me, and I had to clean out my email box because somebody used my public email address to subscribe to a bunch of, and I've had a few threats, in my DMs or whatever, but it's never, but I worry about that where, all of a sudden, because I can't tell you, if somebody shows up at my house at 3 a.m. banging on my door, screaming that they're the police, well, I'm going to the door armed. I don't care if they say they're the police or not. There's been plenty of instances where that has been a false ruse to get into somebody's house, and nobody wants to deal with that. And this has gone on. I mean, there's been you can go watch. There's been high profile streamers who are like game streamers who've been swatted in the middle of playing the game while they're, and it's crazy. But this is the level that we're at today. So you need to be aware of it. And understand that this is things are just getting weirder, JD, just getting weirder as we go forward.
Weirder, nastier, and we were talking about political polarization off the air. It's things people see each other not as just folks who disagree, but as enemies. And the fact that this has become a political weapon now. You mentioned gamers. Swatting kind of hit the public imagination when the gaming community turned to it. I don't know, about 6 or 8 years ago. And actually, one of the people killed was a guy who lived in an address that a gamer had formerly occupied. And he had nothing to do with the dispute between a couple of gamers, and they had decided this is the way they're going to settle their disputes. He ends up dead, and of course the cop who killed him, well, he killed an innocent man because he was used as a weapon by somebody else to settle a personal dispute. Now it's a political weapon, and it's a political weapon at a time when we've had multiple this research coming out showing that there's growing acceptance of violence and assassination as a political tool for keeping the other side from exercising power in our system. And now that Republicans control the White House and Congress, the people who are most have risen most in their acceptance of political violence are on the political left. And this is data that's come out of the Brookings Institute and the network. I'm going to blow the name, but there's two groups. One of them being a research institute at Rutgers University, which came out with a study finding growing acceptance of assassination. So it's very disturbing that our political culture has become so violent, and swatting is actually only one manifestation of how people are using violence against their political opponents.
Right. Well, I mean, we see that with the Tesla thing, right? Where they're burning people's Teslas and burning whole dealerships, and they don't think there's anything wrong with that. There's people on the left who don't think that there's absolutely anything. Oh, yeah, we're behind you. The keying incidents that you're seeing. And then people are shocked when they get caught on, by the way, Tesla's got like 17 cameras around it. So go ahead and key it. They'll get a picture of your face, and they get shocked when the cops show up and arrest them. Well, I just was exercising they're like, wow, you mean, and yeah, so there's no thought about whether or not it's right or not. It feels good. It feels what they want to do. And this violence is escalating. And I don't know how we slow it down. I just know that, again, going back to the Firearms Friday issue, you should go forth armed if you can, just for the reason that you never know you never know what kind of crazy is going to pop up next to you.
Yeah, things have definitely become more threatening, and the acceptance of violence in the Tesla concept. If you catch them, they say, but it's just property. Just property? It's expensive property. It's somebody's ride. Insurance has got to pay for it. And it's not always just property. If you get caught, it turns into a violent incident. There was an incident last year where somebody attacked a restaurant with the Israeli flag flying outside, and the owners come out and confront them, and it gets a little pushy. Except that it wasn't even an Israeli restaurant. It was a Greek restaurant. The idiot who attacked it mistook one blue and white flag for another. So, I mean, this stuff does get nastier and nastier. Property attacks, which aren't acceptable in and of themselves, do phase over into personal attacks also, because people get caught. And then the one being attacked is going to do something about it. We also had, of course, the murder of the head of United Healthcare. That was a political attack. And the guy who did it has fans all over the internet. They're all over the place. Yeah, somehow he's a hero.
That blows my mind. There was a thing, somebody had a post about all the women who were like fawning and sending him their underwear or something like that, like he's some kind of rock star because this guy murdered somebody in cold blood in the middle of the street. I mean, I really get worried when I see stuff like that, JD, because I wonder, can we pull back from the brink on that, or do we have to get to that balkanization that we were talking about, to where we can kind of enclave up and protect ourselves from all the madness that's out there? I mean, I would much rather see a free exchange of ideas and people agreeing to disagree and living, kind of with each other, rather than having to go live in an area where everybody agrees with me, right? There's a danger in that as well.
Yeah, ideally, government matters less. We debate, we argue, and then we have a beer. I mean, that's kind of the healthy way to live life, where the stakes aren't that high, and we can actually live next door to people with whom we disagree. I guess second best is that, okay, I can't live next door to you anymore, and this is what's happening now. So I'll move to someplace else where I feel more comfortable, and where we'll make our own rules, and you live by your rules. to the extent that the federal government or state governments override that by forcing top-down rules that are unwelcome at the local level, that breeds more resistance, more pushback, and more violence. And unfortunately, that's where we're at now. And I don't see that going away. I think we're in the midst of our own version. Now, I've used this comparison before. Italy's years of lead in the 1970s, where they had kind of a slow-moving civil war that never fully blew up, but several thousand people died over the course of about 15 years. And I think we're in the midst of that. It's not like it's coming. No, we're here. We're actually in the boiling pot right now. And we're seeing that in the assassinations, in the Tesla attacks, in the swatting attacks, in the, there have been political headquarters shot up in the last few months. Republican Party headquarters in New Mexico was shot up about 6 weeks ago. I mean, that sort of thing is continuing on an ongoing basis so commonly that it doesn't even make front page news anymore.
Right. Well, red flag laws, right? I mean, going back to firearms, the misuse of red flag laws. I mean, one of the first uses and instances of it, the subject of it was killed. And it turned out that it was a bogus claim from his sister-in-law or something who was mad at him and was, and he got killed. They showed up at 4:45 a.m. and of course, he answered the door of the gun, and they killed him on the spot. And it turned out it was all just malicious. And so, yeah, this is a worrying trend right here. And I want to see, I want to know, how do we get out of this? How do we avoid it? I don't know. I don't know what the answer is to that. That's the problem. One final segment with JD Tuccille. Up next, we'll talk about the state of the gun culture. And we'll talk about the president's first 100 days in JD's mind. Did he deliver on the promises? Is he delivering on the promises? Where are we at with that? We'll get his take in just a moment. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio.
Our light, our guide, and our trusted friend. Michael Duke.
Okay, JD Tuccille, our guest here on the program. I don't like to be negative, but I don't know how this turned. I mean, I don't know how would you see this turning around, JD? I mean, how could we come back together and kumbaya and just agree to disagree and have a beer? Are we beyond that now? Does it have to fracture and then we can pick up pieces? Or, I mean, is there a way to do it? Is it the decentralization that's going to, what has to happen in your mind?
The only way we step back from the brink is by decentralizing, moving decision-making closer to the people who actually have to live by the rules, so that to the extent possible, we're living the way we want to live with rules that we find at least reasonably acceptable. Or if we don't, it's easy to move, because it's a lot easier to move across towns or county lines or state lines than it is to leave the country. So decentralization is the only way to do it. Is that realistic? At this point, no. I mean, can it happen? Yes. It's unlikely. And so I don't think we step back from this. I think we're in this for the long term. I think we're going to have simmering, low level, at least, political violence for years to come, which is unfortunate. It's depressing. But I've actually raised my son to kind of accept that that's the world we live in, and that he has to be able to navigate that world. And we're not the first people who have to live this way. People in other countries have had to go through this. And it's not an ideal way to live a country. One of the things that made the U.S. so exceptional is that we really have not had to go through this in a long time. Unfortunately, that exceptionalism, I think, has expired, and that it's our turn now to go through years of at least low-level simmering political violence.
Yeah, you talk about the years of lead. I mean, of course, we think about Ireland. We think about, some of these countries where basically political violence is the norm. It becomes the norm, and it's almost acceptable. And like you said, when it's not even making headlines anymore, and we're not outraged by it, that's the danger zone, right? I mean, that should be the canary in the coal mine to say something's wrong here and we need to fix it. But more than anything, like you did with your son, we should be prepared for it, just to understand that it is a possibility. We can't just bury our heads in the sand and say, it'll never happen, we're too big to fail, or whatever other kind of ridiculous fairy tale we keep telling ourselves. We have to acknowledge the fact we have to prepare for the worst and hope for the best. And we have to acknowledge to ourselves that these things could happen, and you have to have a plan for what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, I want this country to survive as a free country, a prosperous country, and a peaceful place to live. That's a big menu item for me to order. So what I do is I focus on my family and my friends. I mean, we started off talking concealed carry. I carry, my wife carries, because we assume that we may have to, have something. And I have non-lethal on me at all times. I always have pepper spray, because you want to have options. And you also want to stay alert, and you don't necessarily get into political conversations with strangers in public places because the payoff to that is very low, and the potential downside is extremely high. So stay out of that. I'm paid to argue with people in my columns. I'm not going to do it in public with strangers when I don't need to do that. So, and you keep your awareness, your alertness up. I'm less likely to put a bumper sticker in my car now than I once was because I don't need to come back and find the tires slashed. I mean, there's stuff like this that we just have to kind of do. That it's a change in a way of life and an unfortunate one, but it's a recognition of the realities around us.
What you're saying is so true. And the bumper sticker comment, I remember 25 years ago. I mean, I think I had. Because again, I've been a gun guy for years, so I had an FN bumper sticker on my window, and I had a Magpul this or that or the other thing. And it's not just the political thing; it's the fact that people just break into your stuff just because if they think you got a sticker on your car, oh, there might be a gun in the car, there might be a thing, So now you got to kind of gray man the whole thing. Now the only thing I have on my car is a thing that says "Don't be an Usyk," which is a walrus penis for those of you who don't know. But I mean, don't be an Usyk, and that's it. Because otherwise, I mean, you just never know. You're like you said, don't paint a target on yourself because we've seen the videos, man. Somebody's wearing a hat or a T-shirt that somebody doesn't agree with, and it becomes a screaming match in the middle of the grocery store. And that's just madness. Why can't we can't just nod and say or go, instead it becomes this shouting match. And yeah, you're right. Being prepared, being situationally aware, acknowledge. And I think a lot of that is mental, right? You have to prepare yourself mentally to understand that things are not always American apple pie and roses, that it could get bad in a second. And so that's the biggest leap, I think.
Absolutely. I mean, I was once walking with my son and he's looking at his phone. And so I slapped him in the back of the head. And I said, "Did you see that coming?" And he said, "No." I said, "Why?" He says, "Because I was looking at my phone." I said, "Yes, don't look at your phone. You're in public. Look around you."
Yeah, exactly.
That's what you have to do.
You want to sit at the cafe and read your phone? Fine. Not while you're walking down the middle of the street where somebody's going to come and knock you over or run you over or whatever. So, yeah.
Exactly.
JD Tuccille is our guest. We're going to continue here, the Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Let's do it.
What the hell's an assault weapon?
If we could just figure out how to get all of the murder guns and the attack guns and not keep selling those to people and just sell protection guns, I think that would be great and solve a lot of problems.
Does this mean that if we hurt your feelings, you'd consider the Michael Dukes Show assault radio? Okay, we can live with that. Here's Michael Dukes.
I can guarantee you that I only have protection guns. I don't have murder or attack guns. I read the labels before I bought them. They said right there, protection guns. JD Tuccille, Reason Magazine, our guest. So I've talked with several different, gun writers and people in the culture about this, but I want to get your take overall. I mean, first and foremost, as far as the war for the Second Amendment, or the fight to keep the Second Amendment relevant and to protect the gun culture, how do you think we're doing in this country? Are we winning? Are we taking strides? Are we taking ground? And what does it look like? Do we keep taking ground, or are they going to be able to rally and come back? What do you think here?
We're doing well. If you look at where we are legal decision wise, we have a Supreme Court that has reaffirmed that the Second Amendment protects a individual right, that the individual right is a serious one, and that it also involves being able to carry the means of self-defense, not just own it and have it locked up in a box in your house, be able to carry it and use it. And the culture has shifted in a more protective, direction of self-defense. People, if you poll them, are much less likely now than they were, say, 15, 20 years ago to call for banning handguns, which was a really big thing back during the 70s and 80s. They're less likely to call for banning assault weapons. They're more likely to say people have the right to own weapons, even if they quibble about some red tape that they might think is going to fix things in one way or the other. So we're actually in a very good position now, culturally and legally, in terms of protecting our rights to self-defense. That cannot change. I mean, nothing is forever. So you have to keep on fighting for that. You want to maintain that culture. The fact that more Americans now of different backgrounds are purchasing and using firearms and other means of self-defense is a good thing, because it means it's not confined to a niche of the U.S. population. It's a more dispersed share of the U.S. population, making it more accessible and available and familiar to a wider range of Americans. And we need to encourage that and keep that going, and not assuming that if you win a battle that you never have to fight it again. It's a constant thing. Like protecting free speech, like protecting any freedom. You have to make that the normal reference point and keep it and maintain it as the normal reference point. The idea of freedom, in this case, the right to defend yourself and to own the means of self-defense, so that you don't backslide in the future.
I agree. And I think it is good to see that we are winning. And of course, we can look at the latest breakdown in purchases and what's happening with, who's buying what and what's going on. Some of these numbers are totally fascinating. There's a new Rasmussen poll out. 19% of Americans say they or their household, someone in their household, bought a gun in the last year. 64% of all Americans say the main reason people purchase guns is for self-defense. We're seeing, as we saw in the numbers the last couple of years, more minorities and women and people who identify more as progressive than conservative buying guns because, well, they're worried about self-defense. And of course, COVID had a lot to do with that, when police departments were basically saying, you're on your own, right? I mean, it was a tough time. So I think we're winning on that. But we can't lose our diligence. We've got to continue to push this forward if we want to. It's a continual holding back the tide kind of thing. And then the president made a lot of promises and has done some good things. I mean, we got the executive order on this and everything. But how would you rate the president's first, 100 days, or now we're getting to 120 days, as far as it comes to the gun culture and the Second Amendment? Because he was a little wishy-washy at times. I mean, he had the bump stock ban. He's the one that said, we'll take the guns and worry about due process later. And he seemed, there was a fear that after the assassination attempt that he might come down, but he would seem to go the other way. So I don't know if he's been converted, truly, instead of just saying what people want to hear. What's your take on the first, 100 days or so of the president's term so far on guns?
On guns, Trump hasn't done any damage. And that's probably the most we can say about it right now. He's also moving towards making the ATF at least less anti-gun, not putting an anti-gun administrator in charge of it. We had Patel in there. If I remember right, he's nominated Bongino now to run the ATF, although he has to go through confirmation. I have to check to make sure that's still current, but I think that's the last I heard about that. But there's been no activity on it. It's not like he's pushing for any legislation. There's some move in Congress, independent of Trump, to go for reciprocity in CCW and to require states to recognize each other's CCW. Trump is a New York guy. He's a Queens real estate developer. He was originally a Democrat. The fact that he's not actively anti-gun is probably the most we can ask of this particular president. There are people around him who are more pro-self-defense rights, and they will, I hope, make sure the ATF is less toxic, and less dangerous to our liberty than it has been in the past. But I would not expect much from the White House of a pro-gun nature, unless they all kind of gang up about it once and get a particular action done.
Well, and I'm not satisfied that the Republicans, House Republicans, the Hearing Protection Act, It was originally to remove suppressors off the NFA and to drop the tax to zero. And the Republicans stripped out taking it off the NFA. Now they're only leaving strip it down to zero. So it's not just the president. It seems like Republicans, they've got the high ground here, and yet they, not to be too punny, but they shoot themselves in the foot on this. They could have just stripped it out of the NFA. Why give in? Why do that? It's not just the president. It just seems like politicians in general at this point, they can't stay the course when it comes to Second Amendment issues.
I think we've got to remember that people who gravitate towards government jobs, that includes elective office, are people who believe in government. They want to do something in government, or else they really just want to have a no-show job and get paid for it, which is kind of the same thing. So, I mean, by and large, with rare exceptions, the people who hold political office believe in the power of the state, and they're very skeptical of deregulating things, of legalizing things, of stripping the government of authority, because they like government. They think government's a good thing, and they're wondering about those of us who don't like government. They don't feel too comfortable with us, and I think that's where we end. That's why we end up with disappointments like this. Why are Republicans not willing to take silencers? Silencers, bad word. Noise suppressors, sound suppressors, off of the NFA list. Why are they not willing to deregulate this and take some of these stupid rules out of the system? It's because even if they don't necessarily believe fully in those rules themselves, they're not comfortable with the idea that there should be fewer rules. That's just not the way they work.
Yeah, and I would agree. That's an excellent analysis of that. That's just politicians in a nutshell, for the most part. Not everybody, but for the most part. We're down to just over a minute here. So, JD, what else are you working on? You don't write you write about guns occasionally, but you're writing about all kinds of crazy stuff. What are you working on now? What should we expect out of you here in the next couple days?
Well, my column that came out today is an upbeat one about deregulating appliances. Those of us who have bought appliances in recent years know that they do not work as well as the ones we remember from years past. And that's largely because of federal regulation about about energy efficiency, about water efficiency, that gives us more expensive appliances that do a poor job. And through executive order issued last week, and also through 3 laws signed last week. Remember, laws are more permanent than executive orders. The administration and Congress have moved to deregulate dishwashers, shower heads, washing machines, and all sorts of home appliances that we would like to see working better in the future.
Yeah, if you have to run your dishes through the dishwasher 3 times to get them as clean as your old machine, is it really more efficient, right? I mean, it's so stupid. Well, I look forward to reading that, JD. As always, my friend, you do great work, and I can't sing your praises enough. I appreciate you. Sign up for his newsletter called The Rattler. It'll get right into your email box every day. JD Tuccille, Reason Magazine. Thanks, my friend. Appreciate you coming on.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
All right, hold the line for a second. Folks, we're out of time. Hour 2 is dead ahead. We got Willie Waffle at the end of the hour, plus some other gun headlines. It's all ahead on Firearms Friday, The Michael Duke Show. Isn't that just nutty as hell? We're gonna take a dishwasher. We're gonna turn the efficiency. Oh, it's gonna be the best thing. It'll be better for the environment. It'll use less water. Except you got to run the damn thing 15 times to clean a single plate. And, and you're like, why did I even buy this thing? I could have washed it by hand and used half the water and been done with it. And that's happening to all, like you said, shower heads. Who in the hell thought it was a good idea to let governments regulate the head you put on your shower? But that's what's going on.
Oh, it's absolutely nuts. I mean, we rarely use our dishwasher because we open it up after hours of the thing running, and you look at it, and it's like, I guess we got to wash these by hand. Which we should have done to begin with. There's no point to it. So if we have a big dinner party, okay, we'll throw them in there because I don't want to do all those by hand. But it's useless. The thing is, it was expensive and it doesn't do the job we purchased it for. People find that with washing machines. My mother is a dryer that's 30 years old, and the repairman she has worships it as an artifact of a past golden age. And he tells her, you can never get rid of this because modern dryers will never work this well again. Hopefully he's wrong. Maybe they'll work well in the future. But the fact that we even have to say things like that is ludicrous. Government should not be telling us how our washing machine should work.
I start to wonder if there'll become an underground market for old appliances, right? Like, oh yeah, this works, right? I mean, before I moved from Wasilla, and I wish I'd brought them with me. I couldn't do it. I had a washer and dryer that we'd had for 18, 19, 20 years, and I'd fixed it from time to time. There'd be something that would break and I would fix it because I'm pretty mechanically inclined. And those things, they did great. And yeah, you're right. You get to a new place and you're like, well, this thing doesn't dry like it should, or it didn't wash like it. Why is that? Well, thank your government. That's what it's all about. So hopefully we can roll back some of these regulations and make it work. But that, and the gas stoves, right? The gas stoves. Oh my God, the gas stoves. We're going to kill the planet because we're using. Boy, have you seen Kilimanjaro? I'm just asking, have you seen Mauna Kea? Those kind of things, Mount St. Helens. Anyway, JD, as always, you're writing great stuff. I appreciate it. Thank you for coming on board.
Always my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
All right, we'll talk with you again soon. JD Tuccille, Reason Magazine. He's a great guy. Oh man, yeah, the dishwasher thing. Give me the dishwasher that's 20 years old that actually cleans the dishes. If you can't find parts for it anymore, that's the only problem. Armed in AK says appliances from the 50s are highly sought after. Yeah. The new less water toilets don't work either. You have to clean it twice as often and have to flush twice. Yeah, but that's what, we're just going to use water. Don't worry, it'll be fine. All right. Oh man. All right. Where are we at? Let me pull back to where I need to be here and get things ready for hour 2. Frank, I don't know if Frank just, Frank is he's filling the gap left by Harold on Fridays or what? I don't know, but he's just always so cantankerous. None of the guns I purchased came with a tag to read. You realize that's a joke, right? I'm just saying that was a joke. I mean, you're right. None of the guns I bought had tags that said protection guns on them. Nor did they have tags that said murder or attack guns on them. You realize it's a joke, right? I'm just, just in case. Anthony says, can we force a state to secede? We were talking about California. He goes, can we force a state to secede? Like legitimately, if California goes so far off the rails and they stop being the weird uncle and lapse into dude in tidy whities and a Tic Tac helmet in a Walmart frozen food aisle, can we just cut our losses? Wouldn't that be nice just to be able to say, you're dead to us. You're done. You're done. Yeah, California, those guys, they're reaping what they sowed at this point. And I just, God love people like Chris Chang who voluntarily stay their time there and do all that. I personally couldn't do it, but God love them. God love them. Yeah, the GOP really dropped the ball on the Hearing Protection Act. We're going to get into that here in just a bit and see what it's about. Wait a second. What did Anthony say here? I invite any politician who thinks my suppressor is a silencer to pony up to my AR-10 chambered in 6.5 Creedmoor on an indoor range and remove their ear pro for 10 rounds and get back to me after the tinnitus settles in. Right? Right? I think people are shocked when they realize that suppressors are not, they're not what the movies, you're right. That's what the movie says, right? The movie says that absolutely silent. Nobody heard it. There's a crowded room. You could have heard a pin drop and he kills him from across the room with a suppressor. No, that's not how it works. That's not how it works. The quietest I've ever heard a suppressor is about as quiet as slapping a library book on a table. That's about as quiet as I've ever heard a suppressor. And so, it will get your attention. Yeah, the new less water toilets don't work either. All right. I guess we're all caught up. There is a market for those 50s toilet, but don't tell Barbara I have a supply of them in my yard. Frank has got you're wearing your troll hat today, Frank. You're like you're almost at Harold levels of trollness today. What's up with that, huh? What's up with that? All right, here we go. We're going to jump back into it. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Let's do this thing.
Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Duke Show.
I have 2 guns, one for each of you.
Firearms Friday.
As Thomas Jefferson stated, it is the right and duty of the people to be at all times armed.
Say hello to my little friend.
I say that the Second Amendment is, in order of importance, the First Amendment. The right to keep and bear arms is the one right that allows rights to exist at all.
The Michael Duke Show. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Not be infringed. Firearms.
From my cold, dead hands.
Friday.
Take my rifle, this is my gun. This is for riding, it's for fun.
Firearms Friday.
Firearms Friday. Hello, my friends. Welcome to hour 2 of the big radio show, and we are ready to go on this, my favorite day of the week, Gun Day. That's right. Today is the day that we get to talk about firearms, the Second Amendment, tips, tricks, tactics, questions. Yes, questions we should answer. I forgot to turn the phones on. You're a bad radio host. I got talking during the commercial break, as I am wont to do with all the lovely folks. On, and we will take calls because firearms is about demystifying the firearm. That's what it's about. It's about demystifying the firearm. It's about counteracting the narrative out there in the culture of the mainstream media and the news media and the entertainment industry and everything else. Those folks, it seems like there's always some kind of mission to paint gun owners as, again, some kind of knuckle dragging troglodytes or paranoid schizophrenics or what was the show I was watching the other day? And it was like all the gun people, they were the backwood hick militias, right? Oh, so like I married my sister, and so now I can't, I gotta do my thing, right? And, I mean, it's crazy. We keep forgetting what it's like for those of us who are in the gun culture, what they actually think of us on the other side. But until we watch, movies and media and everything else, then we get a chance to peek and see exactly what they think of us. It's not pretty. It's not pretty, especially those who are the mindless masses that have not had a thought for themselves and so many answer questions. So it's another reason why we open up the phone lines on Fridays to answer questions, to talk about gun stuff, and basically to give folks a chance to get educated. So if you've got a question, well, today's the day to ask. And the phone lines are now open. So feel free to call 319-527-3864, 3864 if you have a question or a comment or anything else. Brian's got a question in the chat room this morning. And remember, there's no such thing as a dumb gun question. Doesn't matter how many times we've answered it, you know. Yeah, no, it's the same with, Brian just said, it's the same with media views on homeschoolers. Exactly. Which, again, hey, your bias is showing there, right? Your bias is showing. So Brian asked the question, any idea what it would cost to make a rifle suppressor ready, i.e. get a barrel threaded, or is there another way to affix the muffler? Well, the threading is necessary, and I haven't had a barrel threaded in quite a few years, but I imagine you're probably talking in the $200 or $300 range to have a barrel threaded that's not. In some cases, on certain pistols or things like that, it's just easier to buy another barrel. They make barrels for many pistols that are extended and threaded on the end with a standard thread, 1/2 inch right hand or whatever it is. Sorry, this is 45. Whatever it is, they do make those. But yeah, if you want to put a suppressor on a rifle, then you're probably going to have last time you had a barrel threaded what it cost you. But it's a one-time cost. And is there another way to affix it? Not really. I have seen some, like if some barrels have non-pinned or non-brazed muzzle devices like flash hiders and stuff on them. Sometimes you can take them off and they can be threaded on there. But for the most part, no, you're going to have to get the barrel threaded, and that's what it's going to be. You can't, and especially you want that precision fit for a suppressor. There have been some like cheesy quick disconnect things that are press fit or whatever, but you're talking about stuff that's going to create thousands of pounds of pressure in a microsecond, right? You don't want, and it needs to be perfectly aligned with the bore. Because if you get a baffle strike where the bullet strikes one of the baffles inside the suppressors, forget it. You've just wrecked your whole day there as well. So you want it to be precision fit, and you want it to be, there's no just duct taping it on and making it work. You need to get that precision fit as well. But it's like I said, it's a one-time deal. And if you're talking about pistols or things like that, much easier to just buy. First of all, you can't use a standard barrel because there's no barrel sticking out of the end of most automatics. There's no barrel sticking out of the end of the automatic. So you need to buy an extended length barrel anyway, and you can get them threaded right from factory or aftermarket or whatever. So it makes it pretty easy. And shooting with a suppressor is very fun and because it's less loud, it's quieter. Now you really have to, especially if you're shooting suppressed pistols, you really have to get used to it depending on the size and type of your suppressor, because a lot of times the suppressor, it totally changes the way you shoot, because not only are you now hanging extra metal off the front of your gun, so it makes it harder to aim and control. In a lot of cases, and depending on the brand of suppressor and how long it is, you could get a suppressor that basically covers up all of your sights. You can't see unless you've got a red dot or something on your pistol. You can't see over the suppressor in some cases because it blocks the front sight. It's as tall as or sometimes taller than the front sight. So it definitely is something that you'll need to practice and train with. But it is fun to shoot suppressed. I will say that it's fun to shoot because you don't have to worry about all the gun noise and everything else, and you can have people around you. You can have a good conversation. Not everybody has to have the powered earphones or anything else, and it just makes it better. Anthony also adds, an improper or crappy suppressor setup also has the added benefit of you getting gas blowback directly in your eyes every shot. Yeah, it's true. All that gas, which is now supposed to be going out the front of the barrel, but is now suppressed and held back, is now going right at you. So spend the extra money to get it fitted properly and done by a good gunsmith so that you can make sure that you're all taken care of. That's what you need to do. Yeah. Are there suppressors for 12 gauges? No. I mean, I have seen people there's been videos and things of people making suppressors for shotguns, but no, it's not really a thing with any effectiveness or ease of use by any stretch of the imagination. Suppressors are mainly built for center fire or rimfire rifle, pistol rounds, projectiles, not shotguns. So, and again, it all depends on the ammo you're using because, if you're using ammo that breaks the speed of sound, it may be quiet coming out of the gun, but the bullet's still going to make that crack when it passes the sound barrier. That's why it's better when you're using suppressors to shoot the subsonic ammo, which is sub the speed of sound. And it does get pretty quiet. It does get pretty quiet, which is kind of cool too. So Suppressor 101, I guess Suppressor 101 right now, which is going to lead us up to our first story of the day, which is was the Silencer Central pivotal in getting the NFA stopping the NFA removal of the suppressor. Apparently there's some stories floating around the internet right now that are saying that the Hush Act, which was going to remove suppressors from the National Firearms Act list and going to drop the $200 tax stamp down to zero, was apparently there was a rumor going around that a suppressor company was actively working to keep the suppressors on the NFA list. Now, the company named was Silencer Central, and there was a report that apparently Silencer Central was lobbying Congress to keep suppressors on the list, to go ahead and drop the tax to zero, but to keep them on the list. Now, why would somebody do that? Why would some company do that? Well, Tom Knighton over at Bearing Arms argues that the business model, heavily influenced by the fact that they're tightly controlled, limited supply, they're on the list and everything else, it's entirely possible that a company might lose market share if suppressors are deregulated. You might have every mom and pop in the world making suppressors. If, every machine shop that has, it's possible. It is possible if it does come out. So it is. But, but why, if they were truly not just about the business or about the profit, but if they were full-throated supporters of the Second Amendment, why wouldn't they embrace this? So anyway, there was a lot of speculation going on. And finally, Silencer Central actually put out a response to John Crump over at AmmoLand. And in response to Crump's commentary on this and discussion, Silencer Central finally responded. And here's what they said. Silencer Central is closely monitoring the ongoing congressional hearings surrounding the Hearing Protection Act, HPA. We have also been vocal supporters of the HPA, as well as the current proposed provision of a $0 tax stamp. Because for those of you who don't know, to buy a suppressor, you have to fill out a bunch of paperwork, get fingerprinted, photographed, and then you have to pay a $200 tax on top of whatever you paid for your suppressor. So you got an $800 suppressor. You have to go through the whole rigmarole and pay the federal government a $200 tax to get a tax stamp for your suppressor. Okay. So as well as the current proposed provision of a $0 tax stamp, our priority has always been, and will continue to be, advocating for deregulation and Second Amendment rights while supporting any win we can get from for our customers regarding their firearms and accessory ownership rights along the way. Regardless of the ever-changing regulatory landscape, we remain focused on delivering exceptional service and standing by the community we're proud to be part of. Sincerely, Brian Maddox, CEO of Silencer Central. Well, that was an interesting response because and really in that first sentence or that second sentence, we have always been vocal supporters of the HPA as well as the current proposed provision of a $0 tax stamp. They didn't say anything about removing the suppressors from the NFA. They just said they support the Hearing Protection Act. Well, the Hearing Protection Act was amended to, this seems like some Weasley wording. I'm just saying, because they didn't just outright come out and say, no, we support taking suppressors off the NFA. Instead, we've always been supporters of the HPA, which of course has now been amended to not remove suppressors off the NFA. So what I'm just wondering. I'm just wondering out there if anybody else is reading it that way. When you hear me say, I mean, couldn't they have just outright said, we support taking suppressors off the NFA list and having a $0 tax on them? Zero tax stamp. Wouldn't that be more clean and clearer? Instead, this just felt kind of mealy mouth. This just kind of felt like there was some lawyering going on there in the background. That's what it felt like. Some lawyers like, well, you could say this, and then you haven't really answered it one way or the other. All right, up next, we've got the mom of the year. No, really, she's not, but this is the kind of madness we're facing in this country right now. We're going to talk about that. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes On Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay. Hey, MD, good question here. Does getting your CCW in Alaska also give you an exemption on the purchase of a suppressor like it does when purchasing a firearm, or any added benefit in that regard? No. You still have to fill out all the paperwork. Now, I mean, you're checked off as a good guy, right, by having an Alaska CCW, but it has nothing to do. All the regulations on the CCW are federal. And it's a totally different deal. You still have to fill out the form. You still have to go through the fingerprinting and yada 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 and do all that stuff. And you still have to pay the tax. You don't get any special deals because you have a Alaska CCW for suppressors. Yeah, no, lame, exactly. Lame, he says. No, there's nothing else there. But the good news is, I mean, this is a piece of good news. If you can find a dealer in town who deals with it and has a Silencer Co. kiosk, you can do all of that stuff in a hot minute. I don't know who in Fairbanks, if anybody in Fairbanks has a Silencer Co. kiosk or similar. But I know that Arctic Ammo and Reloading down in Wasilla has one. And essentially, it's a little tablet terminal that you walk up to when you're going to buy a suppressor. And you just fill out the form essentially online. You put your fingerprints on the thing. You do all the stuff right there in one screen. And it's all submitted right there. And then you pay your tax. And the good news is, the one good thing that the ATF has done over the last 10 years is you're getting stuff turned around in days, not months, but days. Alaska Ammo might have one. Yeah. In days, you can get stuff turned around. I mean, literally 48 hours. It's kind of crazy, But yeah, if you want to get a suppressor, that's where I would go to buy one, would be somebody who has one of those kiosks, because it so simplifies the whole process. So simple and easy. Yeah, they sell suppressors there and have it's an ATM. It looks like you're right. It looks like an ATM, but it's essentially a kiosk where you fill out all your forms and do everything else, put your fan on the screen, it reads your fingerprints, does everything, and then shoots it off. And they're getting stuff back in. It's crazy. Henry, Henry, what you're talking about is illegal, okay? I'm not even going to read it out. What you're talking about is illegal, and you should stop, because you just admitted on Facebook of committing several felonies. So I would stop immediately if I were you. Okay? Stop. Don't do that. Do not do that. Don't do it, Henry. Okay, I see Fred is on the line. We'll talk with Fred. And we will yes, throw it away, Henry. Throw it far away. All right. Let's get back to it. Fred is on the line in Rhode Island, and we'll be back. In fact, I'm going to hide his comment because I can only delete his comment. Well, I don't want anybody to. Do not do what Henry's talking about. It is a felony. It is, in fact, it's a couple felonies, and negative. Do not do it. I'm going to delete his comment just because nobody needs to read that and see that. Do not monkey see, monkey do, folks. That is a good way to go to jail.
What the hell is an assault weapon? Does that mean that if we hurt your feelings, you should consider the Michael Dukes Show assault radio? Okay, we can accept that. Here's Michael Dukes. Kind of a dick, but somewhat funny.
Just somewhat funny? Man, I was going for really funny. Dang. All right, we're going to continue ahead, but phone calls reign supreme here on the program, so we're going to start off today with our good friend Fred out in Rhode Island, and we'll see what he has to say. Hello, Fred. What's on your mind, my friend? What's going on?
Good morning, Michael. Interesting show. This whole thing with the, you mentioned the suppressors. I mean, it's kind of obvious what's going on. It's silence essential had something to do with it. That'd be like taking a car dealer and having them back mass transit. Great idea. Problem is that you're cutting your own throat as far as your business goes. So, I mean, if they can keep it on the list, then that keeps them actively involved with, the sales portion of it, the registration portion of it, and all that. So for them, and if it turns into a cottage industry, the suppressors turn into a cottage industry, then it's an open market for everybody, and they kind of wash themselves right out of the game.
Well, yeah, I mean, I could see that, but again, if you would still be the king of the heap, right? Even if every little mom and pop machine shop decided to start cranking out suppressors, if they came off the list, these guys would still be at the tip of the spear, right? They have all the technology. They've been doing it for years and everything else. They would still be industry leaders.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Well, from that standpoint, yeah, but it kind of watered down their whole base.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Glock with their third generation and all the previous generations prior to the third. I mean, once the patent expires, guess what? Every Tom, Dick, and Harry in town is building a Glock or a Glock lookalike or a Glock knockoff, which is exactly what you see now. Some are pretty good. I just ran into one with the RXM Ruger. I mean, Ruger and a third generation Glock that takes all the Glock parts. Fantastic piece. It even has a removable, removable firearm chassis. The serialized, which is the gun, and the rest of it's just kind of an accessory. But if Glock figured that out, they probably would have got the military contract and left Sig in the dust. However, that's not the way it turned out. But yeah, Glock figured it out how to do it. Fantastic gun, but once again, it's not a real Glock. But then again, they took their idea, ran with it, turned it into a resounding success. But then again, what did that leave Glock sitting there twiddling their thumbs, going, "Wait a minute."
But at the same time, Fred, isn't that what we want in the market? Don't we want innovation? What if every mom and pop machine shop in the country all of a sudden decided, oh, we'll start doing, and they were able to innovate and come up with something new? What if other companies that deal with, I don't know, industrial pressure stuff or sound stuff or things like that decided to take a crack at this now because it's deregulated, and they come up with some kind of fancy new version of us? Innovation is what we need. It's the regulation is stagnating everything. We need to deregulate as much as we can. And yeah, maybe it will hurt some of the suppressor companies. I'm not saying it wouldn't, because they've got a captive industry, but it's the same reason why I'm saying that machine guns there shouldn't be a limitation. If you want to buy a machine gun, you should be able to buy a machine gun, whether it was manufactured after 1984 or not. That's
you're absolutely right. Well, that has another. That's a whole different kettle of fish. The machine gun. The machine gun was a government regulatory. It's basically the same thing we're doing nowadays with the quote unquote military style assault weapon, which is nothing more than a media. The media farce is what that is, and that's a whole nother chapter in the book. What the media has to do with all this. Well, I'll tell you. You talk about the evil, the most evil of evil. You're gonna find your mass media right there.
Right. No, I agree. Look, I think again, any deregulation we can get on the firearms end is a good thing. There are over 20,000 regulations on the books regarding firearms, from manufacture to importation to possession to modification to selling to buying. I mean, there's so many laws we don't even know. We don't even know what's going on. So we need a deregulation because it is a fundamental right. And I would like to see the government get out of that business completely if it was me.
Well, they get the right idea. To shrink the government and the government's control over the people's lives. I mean, there's nothing has ever good come out of government as far as like efficiency or anything worthwhile. All they do is just take something and just completely screw it up royally. Back in the day where they had airmail in the early days, they wanted to have the military deliver the airmail in the older planes. They couldn't deliver the mail. Every time they took off, they crashed. So they can't even deliver mail properly.
Yeah, no.
So for them to run anything else, you can expect more of the same.
Yeah, no. Look, that's the thing. Government inefficiency is. I mean, we know it's. I mean, it's so prevalent. It's actually memeable at this point. It's a meme. It's a standard. The whole DMV practice. Joking about how slow it is at the DMV. We know exactly how good government is and how efficient government is with their $600 toilet seats and their $800 hammers. So we don't need that in the private sector. What we need is a deregulation scheme, and that's where we should be going.
Well, and you are right in one respect. It does open up innovation, individual innovation. But the thing is, you don't necessarily have to copy the next guy. But then again, that's not such a bad thing either. It just kind of makes it. It's kind of like, why would anybody object to it? Well, if you're a company like Silencer Co., or like I say, Ford or Chevy or any one of the other automobile manufacturers, and as opposed to mass transit, it's kind of like, well, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Well,
sign on to this.
I guess I would say I would at least say be honest about it, because that response from Silencer Central was kind of mealy-mouthed, right? They didn't come out right and say that they were in favor. I mean, that's all I was saying. I don't hold anything against them. If they want to protect their interests, that's on them. That's their right to do so. And if they're just trying to protect their market share, that's their right to do so. But don't pretend to be a friend of the Second Amendment and at the same time be fighting to keep things regulated. To me, those two things are antithetical.
Yeah, it's a real square peg in a round hole. It's a tough one to make work. But yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right.
All right, Fred.
Well, anyway, that's what's going on. Okay, Michael.
I appreciate it. Thank you for calling in. And as always, it's great to hear from you. Thanks for calling in from Rhode Island.
All right, yeah, have a good week. Now talk to you next week.
You bet. Fred calling in. Yeah, I mean, look, again, I don't have a problem with Silencer Central or any other company fighting to protect their business model. I mean, they got payroll to meet. They got people working for them. They got, that's their right to do so. But at the same time, don't gaslight me. Right. That to me that's what I read out of this piece was that, that response of, well, we support the HPA as well as the current provision on zero tax. But the HPA says the HPA says, we're going to leave them on the list. That's part of the problem there. Again, just come out and tell me we're protecting our business model. Of course, that would also inform people who might or might not buy from them based on that at the same time. So your mileage may vary on that. All right, we got to go. We got Willie Waffle coming up next. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio.
Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay. Oh, man, that blew my mind. That blew my ever-loving mind. We need to change things up for Willie here. We're about ready to get going. We'll go ahead and pull the phone lines down because we're not.
Goodbye.
We're not taking any phone calls for Willie, so we'll do that. We got our phone call. I was hoping Fred would call today. It's always good to talk with Fred. All right. Let me go back. I didn't get to the story I wanted to, but so Henry said, can I buy a new barrel for fitting a silencer, a legal one? Yes, you can. There's plenty of barrel. Like I said, for most pistols, semi-automatic pistols, you can generally speaking, there is an aftermarket for you to buy, extra length barrels of any length. I have a barrel for one of my pistols that's 16 inches long. So then I can put a stock on the pistol and have a little carbine, right? You can buy them with just a 1-inch stub. You can buy them with compensators. You can do all kinds of stuff. So yeah, it's easy. Rifles the same way. Or you can have them threaded. Anthony said, honestly, most modern firearms are coming with threaded barrels off the shelf. It just picked up a $200 22 for the younger kids to plink with, and it had a threaded barrel end. Yeah. I mean, that's the way to do it. That's the way to do it right there. Yeah. Quick Googling, I found a threaded replacement barrel for a SIG 365 for $90. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think any extra barrel or, for a pistol that I bought, a semi-automatic pistol, I don't think I've spent anywhere. It's always been like right around $100. I don't think it's been much more than that. So yeah, get what you need. Get what you need for sure. Get it all done. Let's see. Henry over here shopping for felonies like he had to show his Costco card on the way in. Yeah, no, definitely. You should read up on stuff before you just start kind of going crazy because they're problematic. Okay. I'm just saying it for a friend. Problematic to do that kind of stuff. Don't do that. All right. I I guess we're all caught up in all the comments and all the chats this morning. You guys have been kind of quiet. Little low pop. We got a low pop show today, low population viewership on the show today. Looks like there's about 30 people between all the different channels. And I want to say thank you for coming out. I know Fridays are not most people's big day, right? I mean, we could have nearly 100 people on the show on any weekday, but on Fridays, 25, 35, maybe 40 people. I don't care. It's my day. It's my day to talk about the issue that I care about the most, which is firearms. I think I dig that. So we're going to keep doing it because I'm in charge around here. That's what's going on. I'm in charge. I do want to mention this story. Because the mom arrested for buying ammo and gear for her son's planned mass killing. And you gotta wonder why. Let me just show you why. Oops, wrong one. Let me just show you why this is obviously not mom of the year. Okay. This is the mom, Ashley Pardo. This is the woman. And I mean, you can wait, I gotta go. You can't see her. Where's her full face? Yeah, there you go. There is her full face right there. This is the mom I just don't even know what to say to this. I saw her picture and I was like, what? This is the mom who's accused of doing all this stuff. And the story is that her son was first contacted. She was in reference to drawings from the local school that he'd attended. These drawings included a map of the school labeled Suicide Route and the name of the school written beside a rifle. The son apparently had a fascination with past mass shooters. And apparently I guess we'll save this for next Friday because we're out of time. My phone's buzzing. Willie's coming. I don't normally ascribe to parents should be held responsible for everything their kids did. This gal definitely needs to go to prison. I'm just saying that right off the bat. All right, here we go. Okay, we are ready. The weekend calls me. It beckons my name. It says, Michael, you don't want to work today. You've got plenty of other naps you could take. You got plenty. Oh, man, my boss is such a jerk. All right. Anyway, Willie Waffle, wafflemovies.com. He's also a jerk. I mean, his boss is also a jerk. He joins us. Hello, my friend. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I know what you mean, man. The weekend it reaches out to you and it says, happiness is just a few hours away.
It's calling you, Willie. Yeah. So we got a lot to cover today, so we best get right into it.
We do.
Let's see. I know you got some new special announcements, which you haven't even told me about. But we got.
I know. I'm really excited.
Let's just start with that. And we'll see where it takes us. Go ahead.
All right. So two big announcements that happened late last night. And I'm going to start with the one that I'm somewhat excited about. You're not going to be as excited about, and then I'll give you the big one.
Okay.
So here's the one I'm excited about. CNN has announced on June 7th it will broadcast live George Clooney's Broadway play Good Night and Good Luck. This has not really ever been done before. We're not talking about they're going to do it on a sound stage. No. They're literally taking the cameras into the Winter Garden Theater where it is running on Broadway. This is going to be the second to last show that they're going to be doing, and they're going to show it to people on CNN, which I thought was kind of cool.
I mean, that is kind of cool. I mean,
Yeah.
George Clooney is a pretty good actor, and I don't know. To this point, I'd have to stop watching all of Hollywood if they won't shut their mouths. But it might be interesting to see. But on CNN, you say?
Yeah, on CNN, which that's the other
weird.
uniqueness
That's
to me.
weird.
Yeah, so CNN, of course, is gonna they're gonna have an angle to it. Okay, so if you're not familiar with Good Night and Good Luck, it is based on Clooney's movie from 2005, which is about Edward R. Murrow and his battles against Senator Joe McCarthy during the Red Scare. So what CNN is going to do is they're going to do a whole special about journalism fighting back and protecting America and all that other stuff that they like to throw out there. And it's also the night before the Tony Awards. So that they're kind of trying to tie that in as well.
Well, good luck with that, CNN. I mean, all these mainstream media outlets seems to really have become more and more irrelevant as the time goes by. It's kind of crazy.
It is. But let me tell you, I'm ready. You're going to like this.
Okay, I'm ready for the second one. Hit me with the second piece.
Mel Gibson has signed on to make the biggest sequel you can ever imagine.
Oh, man.
Yes, sir. It is The Resurrection of the Christ.
Wow. Now, I will say, we watched The Passion this last Easter, and we probably, Terry and I probably hadn't seen it since it came out. I mean, maybe we may have watched it one time since it came out. And I remember why now, because, man, the whole family we're blubbering idiots at one point, especially during the scourging scene and everything. It's just it's so visceral and brutal. But I mean, at the end, it's so amazing. I mean, it's just such an amazing movie, The Passion of the Christ, as Jim Caviezel's coming back as Jesus. Is that
so we don't know. The only thing that Lionsgate announced yesterday was we're doing it with Mel. Like, they haven't talked about like when it's going to be released. They haven't talked about like when it's going to go into production. They haven't talked about who's going to play Jesus. I think it would be hard for Caviezel to play Jesus again. I mean, Passion of the Christ came out in 2004. I mean, that's a good 21 years ago. Not that Caviezel's not a good actor, but one of the reasons he was picked was because he kind of fit that age bracket.
Right.
And I think that has changed now. But and I'm with you. I mean, there's a reason why up until like last year, The Passion of the Christ was the highest grossing domestic R-rated movie like ever.
Right.
I mean, it struck a chord because listen, I know people have a lot of problems with Mel Gibson. They don't like him. They have problems with the movie.
Right.
It's an amazingly made movie. Just like you said, it has an emotional resonance and an emotional impact that is shocking to you. It brings to life these stories that we have read about in the Bible in such a visceral way, such an imaginative way, such a way that just blows you away visually. I think Mel Gibson is going to make just another amazing movie. I really do.
Well, Mel Gibson, whether you like him or not, he is an amazing filmmaker. He really is an amazing filmmaker. And I mean, you can read all about the happenings of the Passions and the Bible, and they could say, well, he was scourged, but until you watch it, and then a crown of thorn was placed upon his head, but until you watch it, you're like, wow. I mean, it's just unbelievably wow. It's amazing. So anyway, I'm looking forward to that. Any release date? They just said they're making it. We don't know when.
They just said they're making it. And I'll be honest with you, I kind of think that making that announcement up front was not the way to go. I think they should have let Mel Gibson make it secretly. Let him make it secretly over a period of time.
Oh wow.
And then just one day he goes, "Oh, by the way, it's coming out next Easter." What?
Yeah.
I think that because now it's going to be now it's going to be, well, where are they going to do it? Will there be protesters there? Who's going to play Jesus? I mean, we're going to get all that churn and all that discussion. And while Lionsgate might think that that's a good way to promote the movie or let people know the movie exists, I think if they had just said Mel made it, I think people would have blown their minds. I really believe that.
They'll make it all about Mel instead of the art and the movie and everything else. And All right. Well, that's some good news. For people who love The Office, there's also some. Is it good news? I guess it's good news. The Office is getting a spin-off.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about it either. So the Office spin-off will be called The Paper. It is coming out this fall in September, and the story is the documentary crew that followed The Office all those years. Well, they found another place to document what is going on in the workplace. They have found this small, failing Midwest newspaper that they're going to be covering, and then seeing the people who are trying to make it great again. And they have run across an old friend, Oscar Nunez, who was in The Office. We will find out has moved to the Midwest to get away from all this, and is not very happy when the documentary crew shows up.
I've watched a couple episodes of The Office, and it's kind of wild. I mean, it really is. It's kind of,
It is.
It's kind of like, wow, that is so crazy. But I guess,
Well,
they know that this is what they want. This is, I guess, giving people what they want.
Yeah, I don't know. I think, we've seen kind of that mockumentary style become very, very popular on television. It's also always been very popular in movies. So popular, this is Spinal Tap is getting a sequel, but kicked it off a little bit on television, and we got Parks and Rec from that, and a few other shows. I just don't know if they've already squeezed that lemon enough. You know what I mean? Like, I think they got all the juice out of that thing. I don't know what they could do that would be different or real or shocking or surprising at this point. I don't know. I have mixed emotions because I love The Office so much. I feel like The Office, you captured lightning in a bottle. You can't do that twice.
It's hard sometimes when they try and do that all the time. Just all the time.
Yeah.
They try and do that, and that's just crazy. Speaking of Broadway shows, George Clooney's deal, NBC is going to do a big theatrical production as well. They're doing what?
They are doing a Wicked musical special.
Okay.
Now, I know it's going to shock you. NBC is going to be airing this around the time that the sequel to Wicked comes out in November.
Big shock. Big shock.
Yeah. And what they're doing now, they said that they're going to do several songs from the original and a couple new songs from the new movie. And they are bringing in a lot of the cast. They're bringing in Ariana Grande. They're bringing in Cynthia Erivo. They're bringing in, people like Bowen Yang and other people that were in the cast. And they're going to perform some of the songs. Now, it's not going to be like a production of Wicked, but it's going to be, hey, let's have some fun singing these songs and bring a lot of choreography and design to it. And, it sounds like it might be a lot of fun. I'm sure the Wicked fans are going to be salivating all over it and very excited. And and NBC has done this. Remember, NBC was the one who was bringing back live productions of plays, right?
Right.
I think they did Grease one year.
Right.
I remember when they did Peter Pan, which is like the worst thing I've ever seen in my life until we talk about something we're going to talk about later here. But they dipped their toe in that, right? And we'll see how they do with kind of more of a concert, if you will. I think this is what this is going to be.
All right. Well, good enough. Well, let's move over to the streams and the movies. You got 3 of them today. Bad Thoughts on Netflix, Hurry Up Tomorrow in theaters, and Final Destination Bloodlines in theaters, which is like the 23rd Final Destination movie or something. All right. So you guide me. Where do we start?
Let's start with Hurry Up Tomorrow. This is in theaters.
Okay.
Oh God. Okay. I'm just trying to gather myself. I'm trying to compose myself. So it's The Weeknd, the singer, The Weeknd.
Right.
And he plays an insomniac musician. He's being pulled in to this strange odyssey where he's not sure what's real, what's a dream. Is he losing his mind? Is he losing his voice? Are we losing the money that we spent on this ticket? Oh dear God, we are. Because this thing comes off like a bad art school film project. I mean, it's trying to be all symbolic and weird. It's trying to be all imaginative with the set decoration and the situations. And then he drags in Barry Keoghan and Jenna Ortega to go down with him in this thing. So like, Barry Keoghan is playing his like manager and his buddy, and Jenna Ortega, God bless her soul, she is acting her tail feathers off with one of the worst scripts I have ever seen in my entire life, as she plays like this woman who's like on the run and runs into the weekend, and they're both so overcome with all their problems in life, they run away together. And then what happens after that is just ridiculous.
Okay.
I'm at half a waffle for Hurry Up Tomorrow.
And I see it's got a Rotten Tomatoes score of 16%. Oh my God. This thing is so bad. All right. Well,
because it's so self-indulgent.
Right.
Like, The Weeknd is literally trying to make a movie about an incident that happened to him a few years ago where he stopped the concert like in the first song. And so that's what happens to his character here in the movie. And then he tries to explain it all with all this psychological mumbo jumbo babble that's going on with his character in the movie. And I honest to God, I wanted to walk out. I was just ready. I was just like, I don't think I can do this. I think I'm out. But I stayed. And that was a big mistake.
I see everybody saying in the comments, oh, it's art. It's art. You can't just have art for art's sake. All right, let's quickly move on here. What's the next one?
That would be Bad Thoughts, the new Netflix series.
Okay.
Which is worse than Hurry Up Tomorrow.
Oh God.
I'm not exaggerating. This could be the worst production of anything I have ever seen in my entire life. Okay, it is 6 episodes from comedian Tom Segura, and it's billed as he explores humanity's darkest impulses. It's supposed to be a comedy, and it turns out to be just this series of like crass, scatological, filthy, lowest common denominator, disgusting, humorless ideas and scripts that any 14-year-old boy could ever come up with. And I'm not talking about a 14-year-old boy who's on the honor roll. No, I'm talking about a disturbed one, because everything in here is potty humor after potty humor after potty humor after potty humor after potty humor. Okay, there were 6 episodes. I gave up after 3. I was done. I was out. I was like, this is not getting better. There's no reason for me to put any more time into this. You know what this one's getting? You know what this one's getting?
Oh God.
-2 waffles.
-2. That's a new record.
It is.
-2 waffles, which is weird because I like Tom Segura's comedy. Usually he's pretty funny, but all right. Well, we're running out of time. That leaves us to the last one. Let's go to Final Destination.
Yeah, Final Destination Bloodlines, the redeeming movie of the week. I mean, yeah, you know what this is going to be, right? If you've seen any of the Final Destination movies, basically death is trying to come get people who should have died but somehow avoided it. And the whole thing that ties this one together is that it's this young college girl, and she's having these nightmares about these things that have happened, and she travels back home to warn her family that something is after them, that they could die. And she finds out her grandmother and her grandfather escaped death's clutches years ago. And now death is coming for them. It's coming for their descendants. It's coming for their families. It's coming for everybody.
This is the family reunion from hell. -1 to 4 waffles. What do you got?
Yeah, I'm at 2 waffles. At least it's got some imagination.
Man, it's tough when a Final Destination movie is the redemption for the weekend. All right. Willie Waffle, wafflemovies.com. Folks, we're out of time. We'll see you on Monday. Have a great weekend. -2 waffles. Oh my God. Dude.
I couldn't believe what I was watching. I was literally watching this going, this is a tax dodge. Somehow, whoever is producing this and putting the money into it, this is the play come to life, right? This is Springtime for Hitler. People who know what I'm talking about, right? From the movie The Producers, the play The Producers as well. Yeah. I mean, I'm literally watching. I'm like, this is supposed to be funny. Somebody of renown has had a finger on this, and like I said, it really feels like just like a teenage boy's fantasy come to life. And then Tom Segura is like middle-aged. I'm like, dude, this is the best you can come up with? What is wrong with you as a human being?
Tom Segura Tom Segura's stand-up and podcasting stars. New comedy series Bad Thoughts will premiere on Netflix, and it already has its worst critical review ever. Coming from Tom Segura's mom, I am beyond vomit. Yeah. It's an insult to humanity on camera. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah.
At this point, they're trying to let you know how bad it is just to pique your curiosity, just to go, how bad could it be? Well, let me tell you, imagine how bad you think it is and multiply that by 10.
Oh, man. All right. Well, it's they actually put a video up of his mom reviewing his series with him. They're watching it in a conference room. Oh my God. Okay, well we'll have to see it. Now Willie, because he is a bad movie critic, has not seen Thunderbolts yet. He was sick. He's been busy. He's got a real
I had food poisoning.
He's got a real job.
The worst food poisoning.
He's got a real job, yada yada yada. Okay.
Yeah, that part hurts too.
Yeah.
I mean, and then I had to watch Bad Thoughts.
Then you had to watch.
I had to,
had to watch 3 hours of Tom Segura. And so he didn't get a chance to watch Thunderbolts. And I asked him if he's going to do it next week, and he's got to watch the new Mission Impossible movie. So I guess we'll see.
I'll try.
We'll see.
I promise I'll try.
We'll try.
Just it's hard. It's hard because like Mission Impossible is like 3 hours long. Like that's really long. A lot of time.
Are you getting to that part? I'm so old. I can't sit through it 3 hours. I'm so old.
No, I could sit through it, but I prefer to sit through it in my home with my big screen TV.
Well, that's true. That's true. We're all that way now. We're all that way. I will say the first time I'd been to a movie theater in 5 years, and I went and took my son to the Porcupine Theater down here in Homer. It's a second run. It's new releases and second run, one screen theater. And we watched the entire Star Wars trilogy.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
It was so great to see it on the big screen. So great to see it on the big screen yet again. It's been 25 years. I watched it again on the big screen when George Lucas did the remaster and the re-release. That was the last time I saw it on the big screen. I saw it when I was a kid, then I saw the re-release, and now I saw it again with my son. And it was an amazing opportunity. It was so cool. It was so
That is so cool. I love theaters like that. I mean, let's be honest. When you own a one theater, like, a revival theater like that, second run theater like that, you love movies.
Yeah.
And you love about the experience that you're going to have when you go to the movies.
Yeah.
And you want everybody to have a good time, and you want them to see a good movie, and there's some heart and soul in it, baby. And you just convinced me right there, because they're showing the Star Wars trilogy. Those are people who care. I like that.
Oh man.
I like that.
Oh man. And this place, it's a one movie screen theater in a town with less than 10,000 people. They've got a membership. And then every week, like this week, it was, it's the new Flamingo Project movie with William Dafoe. That's a new one that's coming out. But they're also playing, they were playing Young Frankenstein. And now they're playing Annie. And then they played Some Like It Hot. And it's so cool to see some of these movies on the big screen. They are just killing it down there at the Porcupine. It's an amazing deal.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh, I'm excited for you now.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Well, plus it's all the movies you can watch in a month if you just pay the monthly fee, and it's for the whole family. It's amazing.
You could do some damage with that.
It's good stuff.
That's a lot of popcorn, baby. That's a lot of popcorn.
I love it, man. It's just such a great place. Anyway, all right, Willie. Well, we got to go, my friend. Thank you for coming on board. And if you don't watch the Marvel movie, you're dead to me. I mean, we'll see you next week.
I want to. That Thunderbolts is the first Marvel movie I've been really, really, really excited for in a few years. Like, I really want to see it. I gotta fit it in somehow.
Yeah.
I got responsibilities, man. Like, this ain't cool.
Wait,
what happened to the days when I was a teenager and I could just go to the theater whenever I wanted?
Don't you just work 4 days a week, and aren't you single? I mean, I'm just dead.
I got stuff in my life, man. I got things.
410s, gets a 3-day weekend every week and can't find the time. All right. I'm only here to harass my friend. All right, brother. I will I'll talk to you next week. We'll see you later. All right, bye.
See you next week.
Folks, we gotta go. We'll see you later. This is what friends do, man. Don't you know that? All right, we'll see you guys on Monday. Have a great one.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show. Buddy. We have